Here we go.
Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
We figured it out.
Okay. Okay. At
All
long
right.
last.
At long last, we are ready to go.
Here we go. Okay. This meeting is being recorded.
We figured it out.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Joyce, I'm so happy to see you
Yes.
here today with us.
I'm so happy to seeing you. It was about 2 weeks ago we had this conversation and it went well. I really enjoyed, the convo. I'm sure today I'm not going to talk much. I think I was actually interrupting the last time when you were talking. So
No, it was fantastic. We have such great chemistry, and so I really enjoyed everything that you had to say last time. Was so substantive, and
okay.
it's such a
I
different
learned a
perspective.
lot from you. The last
I
time
learned a lot
I
from
realized
you.
I realized you're on top of issues when it comes to project management. That is why you are the PMO. In fact, when we are talking about, that's why you're the PMO. I mean, you're on top of issues, and that's very good. That's very
I'm
good. I would
trying.
want to, I would want to maintain this cordial relationship so we can have more of these discussions and more. It can extend to other works, not discussions alone. And together we will make project management a good cause for people to understand.
Amen. I wanted to talk with you today. I had some questions. I know we were going to stick to the script from last time, but I wanted to, we had a lot that we discussed last time that really, I think, lends itself to a much more in-depth conversation. And so I wanted to talk to you about, tools that we can use to empower those virtual teams. Thinking about your company, how are you leading high performance with project management? What did we omit from the previous conversation? So I wanted us to kind of start with a question that I know most people want to hear an answer to, which is, let's talk about failure. When have you failed? And how did you sort of utilize your best practices, lessons learned from project management to get where you needed to be?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Because I'm thinking, for me, failure is a common occurrence for us.
Of course. Yeah.
We have had so many situations, especially lately, where things just did not go as planned. It just didn't go as planned. And you end up sort of just wanting to kind of have the bad day, you walk away from it, set it down, don't address it, but you've got to come back to it. You've got to address it. And I think for us, the way that we've, worked on this failure, worked through the failure instead of working around it, is we've, found ways to have the team to sort of address certain aspects of the failure. So I like to look at failure like a work breakdown structure. Failure isn't systemic most of the time. Failure is going to be really attributed to a particular deliverable.
Exactly.
So the project itself is still going, right? Things are still happening, things are still moving, but there's an aspect of it that needs to be addressed. And that aspect is something that we might have failed on. Maybe we've spent too much money. We haven't gotten things turned in on time. Right. And what I like to do is I like to empower that particular team member who is the point person for that particular deliverable to really go in and come up with a response. And these are
ideas.
Right, exactly. And those ideas, we've already cataloged them, hopefully. That's a part of our risk register. So we've already had this conversation of what could go wrong. Hopefully, if we're, really staying on top and managing, controlling our risk. What are you thinking?
Oh, that's good. That's good. We can go towards that angle. I think it will make the conversation different from what we discussed the last time. And it will be open to, different ways of addressing issues like that. So I think we should do that. That's fine. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I was thinking too. Now, the conversation normally around failure is a hard one to have because we don't know how to pinpoint what is failure. You have to define what failure is. And for us, most of the time, failure can be defined by us not meeting a particular scope,
Scope,
right?
yeah.
Us
The
not meeting a
time,
budget. Exactly, the schedule. We haven't met the
the
schedule
schedule, yeah.
and the quality. A lot of
And the
times, if
quality. Of course, those are the three
Mhm.
measurements, metrics, in measuring your output. So if you are not working within the schedule, you also exceeding budget, and then the quality is also not good, then of course you have failed. Even if you are able to achieve two and you fail in one, you fail. Yeah,
and
because
that
both of them are linked.
yes, they're linked.
Yeah, they are
That's the
linked.
earned value. That's the
Yeah,
value that we earn on our projects. So
yeah,
if we fail on any one of those metrics, and
yeah,
you know what's really interesting, I think for us, especially in the consulting business,
yeah.
is you'll fail a lot, especially in agile projects. You'll fail a lot on the budget side of the house and the schedule because
Because
everything's
it's incremental. Is it
it's
because it's
increment.
incremental? Yeah. As you go along, they keep changing. You need to go back to the customer and find out, whether what you're doing is exactly what they want, and you need to also form prototypes as well to show to your customers before you come to build and stuff like that. So I do not know if that's how you want the conversation to go, then I'm good for it because then it gives it a different angle altogether.
It does because when I think about a lot of the work that we've done, especially with nonprofits, we were the African American Museum here. That was like our first major uh, project, complex
Okay.
portfolio, really.
Okay.
But
I see.
establishing that African American Museum as a digital archive and a physical museum was a tall
Okay.
tale. It was a tall task at a time where the coronavirus pandemic was it was raging, right? And I
Yeah.
think about that one because when I think about agile projects, that's exactly what that was. If
Okay.
everything was so uncertain, the scope was constantly evolving and changing because of COVID, and just because of the reality that most people, there were pictures coming out of San Antonio, Texas, where we are, where
Yeah.
there were people that were lined up in their cars at the food
Okay.
bank, just trying to get food, right? Hundreds of people lined up at the food bank.
Okay.
So we were known nationally for that while we were trying to get funding for a museum. So it was kind of, a lot
Amazing.
of people
Okay.
criticized the project
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah. Because at the
people,
time, food was a necessity, not a museum.
not a
And
museum.
people, because the people are even supposed to be indoors and not to be seen in social gatherings, then museum will not serve any purpose at that time.
There we go.
Yeah.
It was, so it was a quagmire of a
Yeah.
time for us because it was just like you said, the utility. What is the
Yeah.
function of
The
this
function.
complex project, right? And so
Yeah.
when I think about how we were billing, I mean, we were still able, you can't have this a successful project if you're not spending money. If you don't have a
Yeah.
budget, then
Yeah.
there's no such thing as success because you're just, everything's based on nothing.
Based
We
on
were billing,
anything. Yeah.
we were invoicing every month our grantors, and it was a time and material contract, right? It's on a time and material contract basis because it's agile. And
Yeah.
I came to understand and find that agile projects function best when they have that type of invoicing structure, that type of
Okay.
funding and reconciliation, where some months you
Okay.
might invoice for 20, $26,000, right?
Okay.
Another month you might invoice for $67,000.
For 67,000.
Right. And you're sort of incrementally figuring out
incremental, yeah,
what this structure is going to look like. How much is it going to cost, really and truly, to fund this museum in this way that we've structured it, right? You have to sort of build into that. So it's really important to have the right time material contract structure, to have the right partner, the right sponsor. You know, the sponsor has to be able to understand that this is an agile project, meaning that we need the flexibility. We need to have very loose plans, because the plans are going to be constantly sort of shifting and changing, evolving, or contracting according to, you know, environmental factors. Do we have enough staff in place to make sure that all of this is done correctly? You know, the infrastructure portion of this is the other side of the conversation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not to take up all of the time, but thinking about the topic, that's what I was considering is, you know, failure for us in that context doesn't look the same as, you know, failure for most other people who might be working in a traditional project management.
Project,
you know. So I think that's important to make a distinction of. And I think that since Agile is such a new concept, especially in the nonprofit space, since it's such a new concept, it's an opportunity for people who are managing Agile projects to really define for themselves the success metrics that they need to be measuring themselves against. Or by.
That sounds good. Yes, that sounds good. I think we can start and then take it from that angle. And then we are good to go.
Yeah. So what are you thinking? I'm talking too much.
No. So I'm trying to understand exactly where you want us to be looking at, you know, this time. And so I can gather my thoughts quickly so I can flow when we start the entire conversation. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay, well, just jump in when you feel inspired, because the thing is that going back to the original question, right, of when did you fail? This makes me think of a time where, in that context, as the lead project manager, the supervisory project manager, really, I was serving as president and chair of the board, but in my mind, I was functioning as the lead project manager, right? Failure, I felt, was something that we achieved every day. Because in that context, it was a very experimental project. Everything was very much sort of, let's go for it. Let's see how this works. Let's go for it. Let's see how this works. And, you know, things would go well to the outside looking in, but inside, our team, we're running chaotic. You know, we're running all over the place. We're working 24 hours a day. It felt like 24 hours, 7 days a week. So you can't help but to feel that you're failing, you know, constantly, because there's no work-life balance. There's no, you know, so some of the tools that I know we were utilizing at the time that helped us were, you know, definitely our SWATs. We had probably a weekly SWAT at one point. Definitely our Slack channels, lots of communications on Slack, lots of communications through email that went on to Slack instead, so that we could organize it better, which meant that we were working all day and all night. Lots of Kanban boards. Lots of Kanban boards, just to be able to radiate the information to let people know.
Exactly. And that makes it, you know, interactive, because when you have the Kanban board, you disseminate the information on it, and then people get first-hand information. And that helps you to be able to discuss, into details what needs to be done before the other, and, be able to achieve your objectives as it is supposed to be, yeah.
Yes. Yes. So what are you thinking? I mean, do you regularly use Kanban boards, in your work?
No, we don't use Kanban board. We do more of traditional approach, where normally we disseminate information via emails, and then we set up meetings, and in those meetings we set the agenda and discuss the meetings. The Kanban board works with these, like you said, in the agile setting, where we have specific tasks that needs to be performed continuously. With the traditional setting, like where I work, we do not really need the Kanban board, because it is more of projectize. You report to functional managers, and most of these functional managers also report to executive. So tasks are being given to the entire team, and people are assigned certain roles. So sometimes you realize that the information given to me is not made known to the other person, because the other person is also working on something else. At the end of the day, you're going to be measured based on your key performance index, your KPIs. So my KPI may be different from the other person. But unlike with the Agile team, we are working collectively together, and we are in small groups trying to work on small projects. So we have certain tasks and certain tasks that we need to meet or perform. So at the end of the day, we need to have or project, activities, timeline schedules, so we can have discussions based on that to be able to meet our targets. I don't know whether that's what, but with my workplace, we do not do that. We are more of projectize, where we report to functional managers. Yeah.
So this is in Inicio, right?
No, so this is not Inicio. So with Inicio, then Agile comes in, because we are just few. We have a specific task, ahead, and we are working on it. So when we meet, we make sure that, you use the Kanban board to discuss or disseminate information. Our to-dos, we put our to-dos, our meetings, when next we are meeting, and everything there. So that helps us for us to be on top of issues and for us to meet our targets, both daily targets, monthly targets, as it has been scheduled.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about this. You've got Inicio on one hand, and then the other side of your professional world is the extra input bank, right?
Yeah. So with Inicio is my own company that I established because of the passion I have for the agriculture sector. I believe that if we don't have the right food in the right amount, there will be no safe place for us to live in. Yeah, because we are here talking today because we have the energies to work, and I also believe that the energies are gotten from food. So as the saying goes, if the last tree dies, the last person will die. The fact that the tree gives us oxygen to breathe in alone is not enough. If the tree doesn't produce the food, we will not get the energy, right? So I decided to set up the Inicio, where we would basically would have our farms where we'll produce various types of crops depending on the season, and also depending on the availability of the raw material that we need, the inputs, to be able to produce it. And when it comes to technical expertise, I have the technical expertise because with my first degree, I read agric and majored in post-harvest science. So that is why as part of Inicio's processes, we've added agro-processing, where we can add value to our food and make it easier for our customers to use, and also make it easier to go to the market, and then also extend the shelf life as it gets to the market. We always say availability of food. When we talk about availability of food, we don't mean when we are having a bumper harvest and there's a glut. We mean that food can be there all year round. So in making it available, then it means that we have to add value. So if you have fresh produce can stay, for a longer time. And therefore, at a particular point in time, it will not be available. To make it available, you need to add value, that to dry, to process, to salt, the pickling method or something, just to keep it for a period where it will be available for all to have. Now, also, we provide, with that, Inicio as well, we provide consultancy services in the areas of project management and agriculture, to help people, manage their projects, in agric. So specifically agric projects. Now, let's come to the professional side. I'm a development finance person, professional. Yes, and yeah, I'm a development finance professional and also a researcher as well. And like I said, when it comes to development, it is very key, to propel the economy. If you are not developed, of course, your economy will not be good enough for your citizens to benefit. But to be able to propel this, we need financing, some sort of financing to propel that. And as a researcher, I look at where we have a competitive, as a country like Ghana, where we have a competitive advantage, that our financing will go into that sector. And at the end of the day, we will not be looking at only profit maximization, but we'll also be looking at the effect on the economy, and then also the effect on the people, social intervention, which is also very key, yes. So that is that aspect of it. And because with the professional side, because it's a government institution, that's why I was telling you that the setting is more of a projectized one, where we have functional managers. It's a large organization, and we do different work, together to achieve the aim that we are set to achieve, So most of the time we have functional managers, and then, we are being assigned certain tasks and roles to perform to meet the organizational goal or strategy. Yeah.
Now, when you bring up social interventions, right?
Yeah.
Give us some examples of social interventions. Like, what do we? I know. What
okay,
are we?
So yeah. About? So in terms of social interventions, for instance, if you have a group of women who are in the, let's say, agriculture space, because Ghana has a competitive advantage there. And then these women need education to gain the technical expertise in the areas where, they find themselves, which is farming. These women need to know where they can market their produce. So you train them and make their products ready for the market, and also hold their hands to the marketplace or link them to market centers. So at the end of the day, you wouldn't have only impacted knowledge to them, but you have provided them with continuous, source of income, because whenever they produce, they know where to go to, and they would also produce the right product that is needed by the market. So the education alone, is a social intervention, and the fact that you are reducing poverty, since they will have continuous flow of money, and then they have sustainable employment, because then now they have been trained on using the right methods, and that can make them sustainable in the area where they practice. Secondly, with the social intervention, we can also purchase equipment and distribute to these farmers to aid them to increase yield. You understand me? Yeah, to increase yield. We can decide that we will do corporate social responsibilities, where we identify that there is a hospital that needs certain equipment, to be able to function. We go there and then donate to them, So all these activities forms part of the social intervention. And normally it is kind of like a grant, because nobody, it's not credit, it is not, So at the end of the day, we make sure that monitoring, post implementation monitoring is being done, and we do evaluations so that it will help us and inform us next time on what else we need to, to do to enhance on the living of our constituents. Yeah.
You said education. Joyce, when you said education, you had advocacy attached to that. You had mentorship, sponsorship was attached to that. Like, there's so much packed in the social intervention in what you're doing in Ghana that is exceptional, because you don't see that. You really don't see that, especially here in the States. There isn't that, with the dollars doesn't necessarily come the investment in that way, right? Like that's an investment in equity, because now I'm advocating for you. I'm making sure that people know, the marketplaces. I'm making sure that people know about your products and your services.
Your products,
So equipping you. I'm mentoring you, because like you said, I'm holding your hand. I'm not just letting you go and, hey, go figure it out. Go let the wolves eat you.
Yeah. Exactly.
That is very intentional. There's a real serious intention there to see through success of your investment. You're investing in these farmers, these engineers, you're investing in them, and you want to see them succeed. It's very intentional. Like, that's why your perspective on equity is so much more in depth than a lot of other people's, because you're really doing the work. You're doing the work, and with your company, Inicio, you're filling the gap.
Yeah.
So everything that you do on the public side of the house is very well complemented by what you're filling in the gap on the private side of the house.
Exactly.
It's exceptional. You're providing a needed service on both ends. But how are you managing both? I mean, do you have a president over at Inicio who's running the daily operations? How are you managing both of these?
Yes. So as a professional project manager, internationally certified, I'm made to understand, that before you undertake a project, you need to understand exactly what your outcome will be. So what I do is that I have a project concept. And based on the project concept, I'm able to have also my work breakdown structure. And then I have assigned roles where I have even engaged the extension services. So if I say extension services, I don't know whether that's what you use, that's the term you use, but extension services is where you get a technical expertise from the area of my work, which is agric, and I pay this extension officer, let me put it that way, to be able to supervise the workers. We have the manager, the farm manager, so the farm manager also has farm hands who are helping. So overall, there's a supervisor, which is the extension officer who has the technical expertise. The farm manager also has the technical expertise. But for monitoring, with projects, you need continuous monitoring. So then you have the farm manager there. And I, being the project manager, goes in to check the daily activities. I don't need to be there. As we're talking about hybrid, where, sometimes, you can be here and be there. Yeah, I mean, you can be here, I can be in Ghana, but I'm supervising a project, in the US. We have a local office here, and then we also have a foreign office that, I supervise. The traditional one where you have to be in one place. Of course, the adaptive, and then, the other, the adaptive, the hybrid, and then the what's it? The adaptive, the hybrid, and then the predictive.
Okay. They're all in the same location.
So, yes. So what I do is basically to go there once in a while, to make sure that whatever the outcomes, the objectives that I've set out, whether they have been achieved, but the work goes on every day. With a professional side, I am at post every day doing my work. Because like I said, it's a large organization, and then we have different aspects, different parts of the organization doing different activities to feed into the overall objective. So your presence is needed every day. However, weekends and then holidays and then leave days are days that I take to go to the initial project site to make sure that what I have on paper, the work breakdown structure I have on paper, and the clear activities that I've set out to be performed have been done.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. I was going to ask you too, Joyce. I know we got to wrap this up so we can get out of here. I was looking at our chat on YouTube to make sure that we hadn't missed any important questions. If you guys have any questions that you would like for us to address before we adjourn, feel free to go ahead and put that into the chat. Happy to ask it. But I wanted us to wrap up to talk about, finally, entrepreneurs. This is not a new term, right? But you see it's floating around a lot more now. Back in the day, before we had the GCPIT partnership, we had the Global Entrepreneur Network. The entrepreneurs are, of course, our organizational champions, our organizational CEOs, as we like to call them. And we like to think of the good and effective project managers as being entrepreneurs, where they're really the champion for the organizations that they work within. Now, would you consider yourself to be both an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur because of where, you're wearing two hats here?
I find myself, exactly. Because with the aspect of entrepreneur, I manage my own projects. And then with the entrepreneur, I am also managing projects or managing work for somebody else, which is the government of the day, So I consider myself to be both. Exactly.
And one thing too, Joyce, is that I think most people, folks don't understand until they go into business for themselves what we mean when we say things like brick by brick, right?
Okay.
Brick by brick by brick by, we talk about brick by brick. And if you don't work well for other people, you probably won't work well for yourself,
It,
right?
it is like that. Yeah, I realize. Let me share this with you. When I started with work, I started as an entrepreneur. I never thought that I'll be an entrepreneur. But along the line, I put myself into everything that I do. And I realized that I have the capabilities and the knowledge, the skills. So one day I sat down, and also I like reading. So I kept reading and I realized that no, I need to do something for myself because we have 24 hours in a day. And as an entrepreneur, I use just 8 hours. The rest, let's say I use 8 hours or 6 hours for sleep, then it means that I have the remaining hours for myself. So what am I doing? And that is what actually necessitated this whole initial brand, you know. So we have a lot we can offer, especially even as project managers, because the project manager makes the work very simple. There's a difference. Sorry, between a project manager and a lay person who is into business. Because with a project manager, you know the structures that you need to put in place, the principles that guides, operations. You make sure everything is in order, and all you do is to supervise.
It's true.
Yeah.
If you and this is the conversation that we always have around project management offices, right? And how project management offices really truly function as consultants, not as independent contractors. Because if you are having to hire a PMO to do the work, you're already setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah.
That entity itself will be way too knowledgeable, way too independent, and you'll end up sort of the direction, the vision that you might have had for your project will be over here, and then the actual implementation of it from the PMO standpoint will take you in a completely different direction, right? So it's, I always tell people, be very clear when you're working with your entrepreneurs. You want them to feel like they own their work and they own the success that does result for the entire organization. You want them to feel that sense of ownership because it's true. Without them, it wouldn't be possible. But on the same token, you want them to also be empowered to own something of their own. So similar to what you have going on here, where it's like your position as a finance and financial professional and an analyst does not compete with the consulting that you're providing with
Not
your company, right?
Yeah.
If anything, they complement each other very well because you're able to essentially establish a pipeline for investment that otherwise wouldn't be there, right? It just wouldn't be there because those people, those women in particular, would not be prepared. They wouldn't be ready for investment. You have to get ready for investment. There's so much that you have to get done. Like you said,
you have to do,
how, right? You have to have business acumen. You've got to know what to say. You have to know how to present yourself. People don't even know how to present themselves most of the time. They have these wonderful things that they've accomplished, but the way that they speak,
the delivery is just not too good. So you are not able to paint a clear picture. For the world to see. Exactly.
You just diminished everything. But you know what I mean? And so it takes professionals like you to really establish the pipeline and prepare people, refine them so that they know, what is vulnerability in the professional sense? What is transparency in the professional sense? What is security in the, between being insecure and secure, all these different things that you don't consider until you get thrown into the pit with the wolves. We've been there before. It's too late.
It will be too late. Too late. Yeah.
It's vicious out here. We've been trying to prepare you for this. People don't care that you're a woman and that you're, a nurturer and you're brilliant, and no one cares about that. If you do not say the right thing, it is over.
Exactly.
Just say it, right? So it's all of that preparation. You're filling in the gap. You're making the country, you're adding to the success of the nation.
Yeah.
Your business, right? Totally different. But especially here in the States, you don't see that sort of complementary system. You see people, they work at a place and they're not really able to start anything on the side because there's this constant, where you're competing with, you're taking our clients, you're benefiting from us because of your position here. It's all of that sort of thing. When in actuality, if you're empowering your entrepreneurs the right way, then they can become owners and fill in the gap to help really grow your pipeline. That's ultimately what you want to do, is you want to put people in the position to where they can all really have a sense of ownership and pride and self and sustenance. You got to be able to sustain everyone, So let's look at the YouTube chat to make sure that we're not missing anything. We have two questions, but I know we're cutting close on time. So Joyce, I'm just going to throw these questions at you and you answer them how you see them. We have, how do you get clients to realize that they aren't managing their companies effectively? Do you come out and say it, or are there steps in doing that?
Okay.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, the question again, how do you manage
how do you get clients? Basically, yes. How do you get clients to realize that they aren't managing their companies effectively? And do you come out and say it, or are there steps in doing that?
Yeah, there are steps in doing that. Before you come out to say they are not managing their companies or their business well, it means that we have good practices that probably they are not, undertaking in their business. Therefore, you would have to invite the person, you have to invite the entrepreneur, and then you would lay down the, what you have identified, from the way they undertake their business activities, and also let them know the certified or the accepted way of doing it. And then if you can, you need to prove to them financially, because like I told you, everything is about making what profit, or creating value. So at the end of the day, you can have a discussion which will be pictorial and back it with financials to let the person know that if you do it according to these processes, this is how much you are going to earn, at the end of the day. You are going to get 20%, 30%, 40% more of your net income or your net profit, or your growth. You can also use growth. You can let them understand that you're going to grow by, let's say, 30% increment, So when you're able to do that to explain to the customer or your client, they would appreciate it more. And then also you give them, clear steps to be able to achieve, a better result, or to be able to do the right activities that they are supposed to perform. If not, they get confused when you call them and then you tell them you're not doing things right, but you're not able to also show the way. You should be able to, yes, you should be able to point out that these ways are not good. You should use the other way. And in using the other way, this is how it's going to affect your output. So I think that is how you should do it. And it has to be a face-to-face interaction. And then also there should be pictorial, description of what you want to put across to your clients. Yeah.
I love that, because it reminds me of what we talk about in my book, Master Grant Writing, a Project Manager's Guide.
I need to get this book. Do you have a soft copy, or can I order?
I need to get it I'm going to get it to you somehow. Actually, you know what? Amazon is the easiest way to do it, because that way you don't have to worry about paying crazy.
If it's there, then I can definitely, buy it.
It's on Amazon. I'll send
one. Oh, then that's great. Send me the link.
Talk about project selection. Okay, yeah, I'll send it to you today. And from a project selection standpoint, you've got to look at qualitative, quantitative, right? So if I'm looking, and especially for grants, you already know, Joyce, the problem is that people go after grants and they don't really understand the process. And so they go after it, they have their teams, they go after it, and they're like, let's go and let's see what we can get. Well, what did you invest? How much was that decision that you just made? Well, you factor in the salaries, right? You factor in the equipment that they use. You factor in the amount of time that they dedicated to that activity over the day. And you look at your inflow and you're like, oh my gosh, I got so much going out and I have nothing coming in.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to communicate, like you said, to the client. You've got to communicate cost benefit analysis. You've got to communicate return on investment if you can. Net present value, the time principle of money. The sooner you get the money back, the better, right? Because $1 today is worth way more than $1 tomorrow.
More than $1 tomorrow, yeah.
So, we always talk about this. This is our project management concepts, but so few people actually take the time to communicate in this way why a client should make a decision versus, not make a decision. So we need to have a conversation very soon about just that and talk about
exactly.
JOMO, right? We need to talk about all of these concepts, because the time principle of money is just
money.
That's huge. It's a money mindset. That's the money mindset.
Yeah, it's necessary to have the money mindset. It's because you've got to get the money to move the project, but then you have to make sure that the return on investment is good, because if you get the money inside and you don't get it at the end of the day, you don't increase your returns, then what's the essence?
You're not going to be around long. That's why you see all these businesses, these nonprofits shutting the door. Because sure, the return might be calculated, the payback period may be 5 years.
Yeah.
And to a long-standing organization, that might be tenable. But if you are barely breaking even every month, expenses and revenues, you might not see 5 years. So you've got to think about a payback period that's a whole lot more near term. So we're going to have a whole conversation about that, because that's an excellent discussion. I know, and it's actually
I can't wait. It's really one of my interests, so I can't wait to have that conversation.
Let's do it. We'll schedule it today.
Exactly.
It was great. I am looking forward to our next conversation. Do you have any closing words?
Well, I thank our audience. I cannot see them. I wish I could see their faces, just to say I love them all, for making time to be part of this discussion. And we hope to always meet their expectations, with the discussions that we will be having. Our discussions have come to stay, and we'll keep on doing our best. So thanks a lot, our audience. Without you, what we are saying will be empty.
Amen. All right. With that, we are adjourning. Thank you all. We'll see you very soon.
Bye.